Hello and welcome. We're diving into Lesson 6 of the Lead with Grounded Confidence course, brought to you by the experts at bVentured.com Academy. You know, making a big decision is tough on a good day, but making one when you have absolutely no idea what's coming next, that can feel downright impossible. What if I told you there's a framework, a way of thinking that can help you navigate that uncertainty? Well, today we're going to break down a powerful approach for making clear-headed choices even when the future is a total blur.
So here's our game plan. We're going to build this skill set in 5 key steps. First up, we'll look at the challenge of uncertainty itself. Then we'll talk about embracing risk and finding the opportunity in it. After that, we'll get into the art of balancing hard data with your own intuition. Then we'll explore why the best decisions are almost never made alone. And finally, we'll wrap up with a super practical tool for planning when you just can't predict what's next.
All right, let's start with the core problem we're trying to solve here. The old playbook for making decisions, it's kind of broken. We used to imagine leaders having this perfect, detailed map. But today's world, it's much more like trying to navigate through a thick fog. You can only see a few feet in front of you at any given time. And that means we need a totally new approach, one that's less like a map and more like a really reliable compass.
To be successful in this kind of environment, it really comes down to a potent mix of 3 things. First, you need sharp analytical skills to make sense of the facts you do have. Second, you need high emotional intelligence. That's about managing your own stress and being able to read the room with your team. And third, you need the courage to embrace risk, to take smart, calculated leaps into the unknown. We're going to explore how to build that exact combination.
Now, the very first step isn't about a new technique or some fancy software, it's all about a mental shift. Before we even get to the tactics, we have to fundamentally change how we look at uncertainty itself. We need to move our whole perspective from a place of fear to one that sees opportunity and forward motion.
So let me ask you a question, and I want you to really think about it. When you're staring into that unknown, what is your gut reaction? Does it feel like a threat that just paralyzes you, that makes you want to hit the brakes? Or do you see it as a catalyst, a chance to do something new, to innovate, to grow? Your answer to that question really defines everything that follows.
And look, these 2 mindsets lead to completely different outcomes. Seeing uncertainty as a threat, that leads to analysis paralysis. It fosters fear, and you end up missing out on huge chances. But when you see it as an opportunity, wow, that's where innovation sparks. It forces you and your team to grow, and it builds incredible resilience. You can't control the future, that's a given, but you can absolutely control which of these mindsets you choose to adopt.
Okay, so you've got the right mindset. You're ready to see opportunity. Now, how do we actually make the decision? It's so tempting to just hide behind the numbers, but the wisest choices, especially in uncertain times, come from a more balanced approach.
Let's be real. We're drowning in data. We have dashboards, reports, analytics for everything. But here's the trap. Information is not the same thing as wisdom. Data is fantastic for telling you what happened in the past, but it often falls short when you're trying to navigate a future that looks nothing like yesterday.
And that's where intuition comes in. And let's be super clear about this. Intuition isn't some kind of magic or psychic power. Think of it more like your brain's own super fast pattern recognition software. It's constantly scanning all of your past experiences, your knowledge, your emotional understanding to spot the subtle cues and hidden patterns that the data alone just can't see. It's that vital human element in the equation.
And here's the best part. Intuition is a muscle. You can actually train it. It's not just something you're born with. Simple things like mindfulness practices can help you quiet all that external noise so you can actually hear your own instincts. Keeping a journal about your decisions helps you look back and see the patterns in your own thinking. And talking through your gut feelings with colleagues you trust, that's like a stress test for your intuition. It makes it strong.
But even with a finely tuned intuition, you shouldn't go it alone. The most robust, most resilient decisions are hardly ever made in a vacuum. And that brings us to the next critical layer, shifting the focus from I to we, and tapping into the collective intelligence of your whole team. You know that classic image of the lone genius leader making some brilliant call all by themselves in the corner office? Yeah, that's pretty much a myth. In the real world, especially when things get complicated, isolation is your worst enemy. The strongest, most creative solutions are almost always born from collaboration.
So how do you make that collaboration happen? Well, as a leader, your job is to become an architect of that environment. It means you have to intentionally build a culture of trust where people feel safe enough to disagree with you.
It means actively seeking out different perspectives, people who will challenge your assumptions. And ultimately, it means being humble enough to really listen and be willing to change your own mind. This brings us to the final, really practical piece of the puzzle. We've got the mindset, we've got the collaborative approach, now we need a process, a way to prepare for a future that, by definition, we can't predict. So how on earth do you plan for the unknown?
The answer is a really powerful tool called scenario planning. Now, the goal here is not to perfectly predict the one true future. That's impossible. Instead, the idea is to imagine several plausible futures. You think through what you would do in each of those potential outcomes, the good ones, the bad ones, and the ones that are just weird and unexpected. This process builds incredible flexibility and readiness into your team.
And the process itself is pretty straightforward. You start by identifying the biggest what-ifs that are facing you. Market shifts, new technology, that kind of thing. Then, and this is key, you bring in a diverse group of people to brainstorm a few different stories about what the future could look like. And crucially, this is not a one-and-done exercise. You treat these scenarios as living documents. You have to revisit them regularly to see which future might actually be unfolding.
And as you're working through these different scenarios, just remember, your emotional intelligence is your guide. Talking about worst-case scenarios can be stressful for a team. A great leader acknowledges that stress, manages their own anxieties, and helps channel that nervous energy into productive, focused preparation. So, let's pull this all together. Here is your decision-making framework for uncertain times. Number 1, embrace uncertainty as an opportunity, not a threat. Number 2, balance your tools. Use both hard data and your practiced intuition. 3, harness the collective intelligence of your team. Don't go it alone. And 4, proactively plan for multiple futures using scenario planning.
Now, to really help you put this framework into practice, we've put together a quiz, some detailed notes, and a handy infographic that summarizes everything from this lesson. You can find the link in the description below, and they're also available on bVentured.com, which, by the way, is a fantastic source for other great business and technology courses. Mastering these skills is a total game changer for any leader. The next step on this journey in the Lead with Grounded Confidence course is Lesson 7, where we'll explore how you can foster a growth mindset across your entire team. I really encourage you to continue on this path. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next lesson.